afternoon, college football enthusiasts. We're going to do our Week 7 review. Last week was fall break, so we had to miss that week, but there was a lot of good games this past week. We're going to start with the Alabama-Tennessee game. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's one of those big games that actually lived up to the hype. It was Alabama got behind, and then Tennessee could have imploded. You get out to a big lead, you're at home, the fans are all with you, and then at one point they lost the lead, and they could have just imploded and given up, and that could have been this huge disaster. That was a crazy, crazy game. I was surprised Tennessee won. I was surprised how bad both defenses looked. I don't think that was the case of elite offenses. If you look at Hendon Hooker's stats for Tennessee, he's not a Heisman front runner for me. He's got a signature win, but his stats just aren't there. SEC defenses look bad this year. Georgia's does not look impressive. Alabama's looks terrible. Tennessee's, I think, is statistically the worst in the country. That being said, Bama's still in control of their own destiny. That was an SEC East versus West matchup. So if Bama wins out, they could win the West, and they're going to face Georgia probably in the SEC championship game. Tennessee has a rough schedule this year. They had to beat Alabama. Now you have to beat Georgia, and then to potentially have a rematch with Alabama. So it's very possible that Tennessee gets this big win the first time in 30 years they beat Alabama, and then they don't even play for the SEC championship because if they lose to Georgia, then it's probably going to be a Bama-Georgia game.
Yeah, normally SEC is known for their defense. This year is, especially that game. That game, I mean, over 100 points scored that rarely ever happens. But I feel if that game was at Alabama, I think Alabama wins. There's one drive I watched. I mean, they were just backed up. They were just kept getting false starts, holding illegal motion, all that. I mean, I think if that game's at Alabama, I think Alabama could probably win. Also, like you said, the defense is just did not look very good. I mean, just deep ball after deep ball. It wasn't even they were putting. It wasn't they were doing good concepts. It was just go routes. DB's just getting
better athletes. Yeah. One thing I will say, this has got to be one of the worst Nick Saban coach teams I've ever seen. I think they lead the nation in penalties right now. It's either penalties or penalty yards or maybe even both. But that is a very, very undisciplined football team. And realistically, Bama could have 3 losses by now.
Yeah.
They're not playing quality football. And it's kind of alarming, I think. That being said, the worst probably Nick Saban team he's had in 10 years, undisciplined, and Tennessee barely eked out that win. They had a chance at a field goal, Bama did at the end, and the guy just missed it. Crazy finish, and everything's kind of coming up Tennessee right now. But that said, they have a huge matchup coming up with Georgia that's going to determine their future.
Yeah, that game will probably be one of the biggest of the year, especially for those both of those teams. I was trying to think what I was going to say earlier, but Texas, if they would have lost to Texas, without a doubt, especially after seeing them play that, Texas could have had Quinn Ewers. I mean, when he was in there, he was destroying their defense. It wasn't even close. But
even their backup was successful before he got hurt. So
yeah, I mean, it's weird to think that Texas was that close. I mean, that guy doesn't get hurt.
They should have lost to A&M as well.
Yeah, it's just. Their offense is really good, and same with Tennessee. Both their defenses were not good. But we sometimes see really good offenses but not good defenses. But I mean, reality, either team could have got a stop. They either go to overtime or they win the game.
I wouldn't even say they're average defenses. I mean, they're the amount of yards Tennessee's given up every week. They have to score that many to win because they can't stop anyone.
Yeah, and with their lack of time of possession, I mean, they go so fast. They're down the field in 2 minutes usually. They can do that, but if they don't do that, then
you're just giving more opportunities to the other team.
Yeah. Moving on, Penn State gets absolutely destroyed by Michigan. I mean, is it Michigan that good, or Penn State just bad, or?
I think a little both. So I will give Michigan a lot of credit. So going into that game, Harbaugh has a terrible record still, even with that win against ranked opponents. James Franklin does too, and Penn State absolutely got their doors blown off. If the score was close at halftime, but if you actually watched the first half of the game and didn't just look at the halftime scores, you would have known the game was over. Michigan was just absolutely dominating time of possession. Penn State's offense looked horrible, and their defense couldn't stop anyone. I think it's time for Penn State to move on from James Franklin. I think they kind of peaked the program with him, and you can't keep losing those big games. You're James Franklin.
I kind of feel the same way. Like, I did look at the score. I was like, oh, maybe this is close. But then, like, I started watching the third quarter, and it's just already over.
Michigan was scoring at will. They could run the ball at will. One thing I will say is Michigan's passing attack has not looked good all year. J.J. McCarthy has not had to win a game yet. He didn't have to do a whole lot in the Penn State game. I think he was under 50% completion, though, or at least for large chunks of the game. Maybe he finished higher than that. But I need to know, as I watch Michigan football, can J.J. win a game for you if he has to? Can he make a fourth quarter drive? Like, he doesn't have to yet because they can just run the ball at will. But if someone stops the run, can your leader of your team go out and win you the game? And that's a question mark for Michigan. The only remaining question mark, in my opinion. They're a good team.
All right, and then one of the big powerhouses out west, USC, gets beat by Utah. I mean, in my opinion, I felt like I knew USC would eventually lose to somebody. Utah, I kind of thought it would be them. They play Oregon State close. I just don't think their defense, their defenses out west, aren't necessarily great. I mean, it's just kind of like a weak conference. But I mean, UCLA is really playing well, though.
I'm a big Lincoln Riley hater. So anytime a Lincoln Riley team loses, I think that's better for college football, especially the way he left Oklahoma there. So I was excited to see USC lose. I thought they were going to win. I watched that game, and USC was moving the ball at will early on. I think they were up 21-7 or 14-0 at one point early in that game. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if Utah has it. They got to get a stop. And then USC should have won. They had the ball late. They had a receiver drop a wide open pass, a crossing route where he could have catch it and ran for a little bit more. USC just imploded, and it's kind of funny to think they're not really going to compete in the Pac-12 this year, and then they're moving to the SEC.
Yeah.
So it's only going to get harder. So I'm not really. I don't know how good USC is going to be going forward. They got a really tough schedule.
Yeah, it is good for UCLA. I mean, before they announced they were going to move, they were kind of mediocre, honestly. But now this year, they're playing the best they have in a long time. So I think that's good for UCLA. For USC, I don't think it's great. I'm kind of against that move anyway. I would prefer it to stay more geographical, but that's just me.
I was impressed by USC's quarterback, Caleb Williams, I think is his name. And that guy has a rocket. He's raw. He needs. I don't think he's draft eligible yet. He needs 2 more years at least before, but he can throw on the run 30 yards downfield, accurate passes. His receivers, I think, let him down in that game. But he can scramble if the line breaks down. He's quick. He can just straight up run the ball. He's got good accuracy. He can throw to all field. He can make every throw. He gets a little more coaching, he's going to be a problem in the NFL.
All right, moving on from that, Clemson escapes FSU. I mean, I think it's just a matter of time before Clemson loses a game. Syracuse, they have them this week. I think if someone's going to knock them off, I think it's going to be Syracuse. They look better than NC State did, in my opinion. I mean, that's just, I don't know what your thoughts on that are. And then, go ahead.
I actually picked Florida State to win that game, so I was a little disappointed in that. Clemson, I think they're kind of like USC was. They're playing with fire. They keep winning these close games, and sooner or later, a ball's not going to bounce your way, or it's going to get tipped, or something like that, and you're going to lose one of these. I'm not willing to say Syracuse. I'm not willing to pick that upset this week. It should be a good game. I hope it's an entertaining game. If we get even half the game that Bama Tennessee was, it should be fun to watch. I think Clemson is playing with fire every week. They look like Florida State did, Jameis Winston's second year there, with every single game's an nail biter. Yeah, they have not asserted themselves as a dominant team, even against inferior competition many times.
And then TCU just keeps on winning. I mean, they beat Oklahoma State. For a while there, it looked like there was no chance for them, in my opinion. I almost kind of turned the game off. I was watching it, I was like, wow, I think Oklahoma State's got this, and then next thing I know, look at the score, and TCU had won. So, I mean, it's good for them.
They do keep winning. I don't know how scary of a team TCU is. So like when you start looking like longer term, like playoff picture, and are they going to be a factor? I don't know if my team would be scared about playing TCU, but to TCU's credit, they just keep winning games. And like at this point in the season, with all the upsets that there've been and everything, like you got to give TCU its credit. I don't know if they have a strong identity yet, though. They have very good quarterback play, and a lot of times in college football, that's especially nowadays, that's what you need to win. So I'll give TCU credit. It kind of looks like the Big 12, maybe theirs this year.
Yeah, so Ohio State had the bye last week, correct?
Yes, sir.
Purdue won by 6 against Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska's kind of, with the new coach, they're kind of, like, they were favored to win that game. And I was kind of preferring Purdue's favored to lose because they usually play better, I guess. But, I mean, they won by 6, so they didn't really cover. But I felt like they played pretty well other than their defense. I mean, they just kept getting burnt by the same guy over and over. But they ran the ball extremely well, which is very rare for Purdue. I mean, Devin Mockabee is running the ball very well this year. I can't believe that he is a walk-on. That's just one thing for me. But
I thought Purdue would win the game, and then as I watched it like everyone's like, oh, they're gonna blow this. Like
I was scared.
Nebraska scored like early in the third, I think, and I'm like, oh man, here we go. Like I thought it was all downhill, and they hung out to win, which is good because if they lose that game, that opens up the Big Ten West quite a bit. So good win for them.
Yeah, and Illinois beats Minnesota. So really, in my opinion, the Illinois, as long as both teams can win out, which I think Purdue definitely can, the Illinois-Purdue game will be, I think, what will decide the West. But whoever wins that is probably just going to go get stomped by Ohio State. So, I mean, I guess it's good that we win the West, but moving on from that, we're going to do a Week 8 outlook. The LSU Ole Miss, LSU's actually favored to win. It's at LSU, though, which I feel like the spreads have been giving a lot of favor to whoever is the home team, especially in the SEC.
When I was looking for an upset this week, I looked at that game because I thought LSU would be predicted to lose. And then it's a 1.5-point line, and this morning when I checked it was, and LSU's at home. So that is probably the difference there. I think LSU can win that. They impressed me last week. So I'd like to see, like, I don't hate Brian Kelly as a coach. I think he did pretty good at Notre Dame. I think he peaked at Notre Dame, but I think he was a good coach. He won a lot of games there. And early in the season when LSU was losing games, I didn't think that was like indicative of a quality of coach that they had. So hopefully they continue to turn the corner. I'd like to see them be a little better.
Yeah, and then Penn State, Minnesota, that one to me is going to be very interesting. Penn State's favored by 4.5, but if Minnesota can catch Penn State at a bad time, which Minnesota's not playing well either. I mean, they've lost.
Their quarterback's out right now.
Yeah. I don't know if they have their running back.
Yeah, Mo Ibrahim, he's supposed to be back.
Okay.
And Michigan ran all over him. So to me, that Penn State Minnesota, that's a gut check game. That your manhood's on the line there. Like you just got embarrassed when you were supposed to be like this up and coming team. And if you lose here, that team will implode because you have Ohio State the week after.
Yeah. So 3 in a row. I mean, 3 losses in a row. I don't see Ohio State losing a game in the regular season.
If James Franklin wants to save his job, he's got to find a way to win this game at least.
And then Syracuse-Clemson. I mean, Clemson is favored by 13.5. I think that's very generous in favor of Clemson. I'm not too impressed with how they play. I mean, like we talked about earlier, they just keep winning by a touchdown every week, which, it's nice. But once you get to playing the SEC teams and an elite Ohio State team, I mean, Syracuse might be this week. I think at least Syracuse covers, might not knock them off all the way, but at least it will be a close game, I feel like.
I can't see Syracuse keeping this close. I'd like to see Clemson kind of get knocked off. I don't like those teams that kind of play with being good and then never establish themselves. So I would like to see Clemson lose, but even with the 13.5, I don't know. Maybe I just haven't seen enough Syracuse. Well, I'm not trying to be a Syracuse hater or anything. I watched at least one of their games this year, but I don't know if they're gonna be able to hang.
I hope Syracuse can knock them off because it'll make Purdue's loss to them seem a lot better.
That's true.
Which even then, Purdue's 2 losses aren't even bad losses. I mean, Penn State and Syracuse both are top 15.
Mm-hmm.
So But Texas and Oklahoma State play this week. I think Texas can actually knock off Oklahoma State, especially with Quinn Ewers back. I think they look really, really good when he's at quarterback.
I'm going to disagree on that. I think Quinn Ewers is a good quarterback. I think he's too raw. He came back last week, and everyone's ready to anoint him like this next great college quarterback. And I'm not even saying he's not going to be. He needs more time.
Yeah,
he had like 6 snaps at Ohio State last year before he transferred. He got hurt in the Alabama game. Like, he just doesn't have a lot of play time under his belt. And I think he's going to be very good when it's all said and done, but not yet. Too big of a stage for him. I think Texas will lose this game.
And then lastly, UCLA, Oregon. Like we said, UCLA is playing very well, especially from what they were. But Oregon is favored by 6.5. I think UCLA wins the game and obviously cover, but I think UCLA wins the game. I mean, I feel like they're really balanced. Like, they run the ball well, throw the ball well. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but
I agree 100% on that one. I have UCLA. Give me UCLA in the 6.5. They got a good running back transfer from Michigan. They got a quarterback who's dynamic. He can run. He can throw pretty well. They've been impressive. I like Chip Kelly a lot. As a coach, he's pretty innovative, and he's got some fun stuff going on. I'm glad to see UCLA back. I think they got great uniforms, too. I love UCLA colors. Oregon's got some great colors, too. That game's in Oregon, and that's a big line to me. I think UCLA is going to win this. That's my upset pick for the week.
All right, so now we're going to do our Heisman predictions. With more thought, maybe Stroud would be in first, but right now I'm going to go with Hendon Hooker. I know he doesn't have necessarily great stats, but I think the way he can just run and throw both, I think he's got the dual threat to him. And then I have Stroud in second and then Young for third, which really either of those three could win very competitive Heisman race this year.
I have C.J. Stroud as my favorite right now, and not trying to be a homer. I don't think they've played the same quality teams that Tennessee's played necessarily, but the Ohio State offense is elite. He definitely has more weapons than Tennessee does too. So, but I think if you just look at the quarterbacks, I don't think Hendon Hooker played elite when they played Alabama. He had some overthrows. He threw an interception. C.J. Stroud looks like an elite quarterback. So I would put him as my favorite right now. Not to be a Big Ten homer, but I think Blake Corum's having a fantastic year, running back for Michigan. I think he's pretty elite. So I would probably have him tied with Hendon Hooker right now. Hendon Hooker, the good thing about him is he has that signature win. That's what you need in the Heisman race. And beating Alabama is certainly that. So that's one thing. He's got to get his stats up a little bit. Because it's not just a stats race, but that will help. Another name I'll throw on there, B.J. Robinson, the running back for Texas. He's probably the best running back in the country this year. Texas, when he is running the ball, they are a very good team. I think he may be more important to that team than what Quinn Ewers is. So I'll throw his name in there. If he continues to do good, then he might have an outside chance at that. Maybe a dark horse candidate.
Yeah, I was thinking him maybe for fourth or fifth right now, but if he can, like you said, if he continues, he'll have a chance. Ohio State has Iowa this week. I mean, that should be a pretty easy win, especially with their offense.
I saw a stat yesterday. Iowa's quarterback has played in 29 career games. He has 21 career touchdown passes. C.J. Stroud has 24 touchdown passes in the first 6 games of this year alone.
I know Iowa's normally run first, run the ball, pump the ball, but I mean, they can't really run the ball that well either.
The line's 29.5. How do you feel? That's a huge number.
I don't know if it'll be that bad, but it definitely could be. I think it just depends. I mean,
to me, this is a statement game for Ohio State. You watched your rival last week dominate Penn State when they were both top 10, and you got that Michigan game circled on your calendar all year if you're an Ohio State fan or if you're an Ohio State player, and you know what Michigan did last week against a pretty good Penn State team, what we thought was. Iowa's defense is good. Say what you want, their offense is atrocious, but their defense is very, very good. So this is a gut check. I'm going to take Ohio State minus 29.5. That is a huge line. That is a Power 5 team versus a Power 5 team in a 30-point line. That is crazy, but I'm going to do that. This is the statement game for Ohio State. They had the bye. Tennessee had a big win. Michigan had a big win. maybe people are forgetting about Ohio State. This is a chance to get back up there. Some of, your ranking and the playoff seeding and all that, that's style points, if you will. You know, how good you look, what kind of headlines you get. This is Ohio State's chance to get back in that conversation.
Purdue's actually not favored against Wisconsin, which Purdue has a much better record, but also Wisconsin hasn't lost to Purdue in like 15 straight years, which really hurts as a Purdue fan. I mean, it feels like we're so close some years and then they just beat us. But I think this is the year.
You get that monkey off your back this year?
Yeah, they end the drought. I mean, I think Purdue is definitely the better team. I don't think Wisconsin has the quarterback play right now. That's just me. Purdue definitely has a better quarterback, but hopefully our secondary can fix some stuff. Our front seven has actually been like pretty consistent at stopping the run recently. So I think if they can stop the run like they did against Minnesota, I know they still didn't have their starting running back, but I mean they still stopped the run pretty well. But I think they can definitely come out of there with a win.
I agree. I would take Purdue in that game. I think this is the year that they overcome. Wisconsin fired their coach. Their program's kind of at like a turning point here. There were some players starting to enter the transfer portal for Wisconsin.
Yeah, I heard some of that too.
So that I know it's a home game for them, but if you just look at the results on the field this year, I don't think anyone could tell you that Wisconsin's a better football team than Purdue. Purdue has been very impressive this year, and I expect them to get the win this week.
Yeah, I think if Purdue, I'm surprised Purdue was not ranked this week, but it's also just the AP poll. But I think if they can pull out a win this week, there is no reason they should not be ranked. But
I agree with that.
you have anything else you would like to add?
No, that's it.
All right.
Some good matchups this week, though.
Yeah, definitely would be an interesting week to turn into college football. But have a good week, and we'll see you next week.